Good morning, everybody. Today is Sunday. It's bright and early. We got our coffee. It's raining outside, so I figured let's go ahead and knock this video out. This is going to be episode number 1, talking about the Garmin XT2, the DMD-T665 devices. We're going to focus on the devices themselves, the quality, different specs, what I think about them in general after the 500-mile ride we did in the Smoky Mountains this last weekend. And then episode 2, we're going to talk about the user interface, which is really the biggest difference between these two and really what makes either one of them stand out, depending on what your preferences are and how you use the devices. So first off, big thanks to MotoCamp Nerd for sending me the Garmin XT2. Without them, this would not have happened, so thank you very much. As a disclaimer, the DMD devices, I have paid for all of those devices, the tablet, the phone, the controller, any accessories, I've paid for everything. So just want to get that out of the way. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Trying to get some more content. It's been hit and miss depending on how work and life is going. But it really feels like the navigation side is where I get most of my views and people are interested. So that's why we're focusing on that lately and doing this comparison for y'all. So let's jump right into it. So we're gonna go with some obvious things first. So size and display, those are the two things we're gonna start off with. Size-wise, the Garmin looks bigger in general. It's a taller screen. I did provide the specs on Instagram the other day, kind of comparing actual size versus viewable size. So the Garmin XT2 is a 6-inch diagonal device. DMD is a 5.7 inch screen. But we're gonna go a little bit beyond that, because when you actually break it down and measure actual viewable map screen, they're actually very, very close. And so first let's start off with the Garmin. And the actual Garmin size, like this is the, not just the screen size, this is the actual size of the Garmin. The Garmin's sitting at 6 inches by 3.5 inches, okay? The DMD device is 6.3 inches, so it's wider, but it's 3 inches tall. So the Garmin has half an inch on the DMD as far as how tall it is. Now, if you're looking at actual viewable screen, so when I say viewable screen, I'm talking, if I go into the map of each device, we're talking how much of the map are you seeing with everything that's showing, or everything that you may be able to hide on the screen, because that's where the DMD is going to shine a little bit, and I'll show you why. But viewable screen size. So the Garmin XT2, one of its pros is that it has large buttons. It's easy to read. It has big print, but that also provides you less of a viewable screen. So in landscape, it's 5.2 inches by 2.5 inches because of the header that takes up some real estate, and you cannot remove this header. I could not find a way. If someone knows how, let me know. The DMD device, as you can see, it locked, which I have it to where it locks on movement automatically. And when it does that, it will hide the lower menu. You can collapse your data information that you have selected. And if it doesn't lock, you can just tap the screen and it also hides that menu. But when it's in locked mode, it's gonna hide some stuff. And in general, you end up with 5.1 inches by 2.4 inches of viewable screen, which is almost identical. You're talking 0.1 inches difference between the two of actual viewable screen. So it actually ends up being very similar. It doesn't look that way, but it is. Now, if you're doing portrait mode, so if you put these in portrait mode, again, they're a little different because the phone is longer. So the phone in general is longer. And so portrait mode, the XT2 is 3.9 inches by 2.9. The phone is 4.5 inches by 2.6. So it's definitely a longer phone or a longer device because it's a phone. And so when you're looking at, and it's not rotating, there it goes, you're able to see farther on the GPX. So it's actually nice having it longer. And that's one nice thing about the phone is I think it does do a great job in portrait mode versus landscape mode compared to the XT2. So if you want to mount your device in portrait mode, the phone actually to me gives you a better size as far as display goes. Now, talking about the actual displays themselves, the XT2 is a TFT display. It's 1050 nits. Let me turn these actually back on again. Let me make sure the phone is turned all the way up. Brightness, yep, all the way up. I believe the Garmin is as well. And so this is 1050 nits. The DMD is 800 nits. I don't know if you can see on the video, but the Garmin does look brighter. There's no doubt about it. When it comes to direct sunlight on these devices, the Garmin overall does a better job. But if I'm looking at these devices, the Garmin is a lot harsher to look at. The DMD has an IPS display, and so it's a little bit easier on the eyes. It has a better viewing angle at extreme angles. The IPS does better if you're looking at it from the side. That's not a big deal because typically you're not going to be looking at it from the side. You're looking at it straight on. But the IPS display is definitely, it doesn't make my eyes strain as much as if I'm looking at this Garmin screen. But when it comes to direct sunlight, it does seem like the Garmin is a little bit better. I can still see okay with the DMD. It's not huge. Would I like it a little bit brighter at times? Yes, but it's not a deal breaker. But those are two differences on the displays themselves. Also, rain response. So it did rain on us for a full day, all day long. The Garmin did fine. I had no incidental touches when it was raining. The DMD device, if it wasn't locked, so the screen, when I'm riding, it's always locked. But if it wasn't locked, you would have had incidental touches with the rain. There's no doubt about it. So that is one thing. That lock feature is a must when it comes to rain. Next up, let's talk about the batteries. So I don't know the size of the actual battery on the XT2. Garmin does say that you get 7 hours of battery life or 5 hours if it's at 100% backlit. The DMD device is a 4000 milliamp battery. It can easily do just as long as the Garmin. The thing is, you have these devices, they're always going to be typically plugged into power. So to me, that's not really an issue personally. The thing with the phone is if you use it as a phone, then you would be using that off of the charging cradle. So that's not a big deal as far as now if you were to lose power, if your charging went bad or you had issues, then yeah, that would be an issue. But I think either device is going to get you where you have to go. And then you may or may not have to charge it later in the day to get you to your final destination. But potentially they should last you the whole day if needed, especially if you turn the screen off when you're stopped. Now, if we look at charging itself, so the different charging options, we'll start with the XT2 device. You get your typical Garmin charging cradle, amps, bolt it right onto a mount. pretty basic, you know, clips right on. So it's gonna snap in. It is firm, it's very firm. Had no issues with going through some pretty rough terrain. It's a very, very tight fit. So they did a great job, I think, with that. So that's pretty basic on the mounting options for that. The DMD nav phone device is a little different. So this is a magnetic with pogo pin charging with 2 clips. And so this again is magnetic. Here's the back side of the phone. It's going to magnetize right into the mount. To release, you're going to press these 2 clips and pull it right off. I had no issues during the ride, no issues with it. I've heard of some people, I think maybe breaking these or it coming off. Again, no issues on my end. It does come with a quick disconnect with a cap. So if you wanted to swap between USB and direct charging, you can do that with the DMD device. You cannot do that with the XT2. And so you can buy a USB cable, connect it, plug it in via USB. That is what I did on this ride because I wasn't going to keep this on the bike. And so it did charge just fine via USB, no issues. The other option is to do a direct mount, direct charging. Same thing. You get your positive, negative, then you get your data cables as well. If you want to do your controller option, you can connect that via Bluetooth or direct connection. I do that on the tablet as well. I did it just via Bluetooth on here because I had it wired in for the tablet on my bike. It worked fine and no issues there. The next thing is on the devices themselves. So buttons. The Garmin XT2 doesn't have a whole lot of, well, and that's not a bad thing either. It's less things to maybe go wrong or break. You pretty much have a power button and that's it. So on the back side, you have a micro SD slot. You have the USB-C charging and that's it on the Garmin device. On the DMD device, because it is a phone, you have a lot more options. You have your power button, you have your volume up and down. You have a button that you can program to open different apps and do different things. So that is a nice option. You have a micro SD card slot and a SIM card slot, another big factor on these devices. Then you have your USB-C. So again, it being a phone gives you some additional options. The phone also has a front and back camera and a flashlight. So some additions that you get with it being a phone. And the SIM card is a big one because to me that's another big piece on how this thing stands out, because you can have the phone set up through a carrier. I use Mint Mobile that goes through T-Mobile now, and it works really well. I'll put in the description how you can sign up with Mint Mobile. No issues registering this with actually both. So I was able to swap the SIM card from the tablet to the phone, no issues as well. Next up, let's talk about storage. So storage is a little different between these devices. The XT2 has 32 gigabytes of internal storage, whereas the DMD device has 64 gigabytes of internal storage. The XT2 can handle 256 gig micro SD card. The DMD device can handle, I believe, up to a terabyte. I've had 512 in both devices with no issue, but I'm pretty sure it can even handle up to a terabyte if you needed to do that. I don't see why necessarily you would need to put a terabyte in this, but it definitely has a lot more storage capacity than the Garmin device. The next thing is talking about the waterproofness of these devices. They're both waterproof. The Garmin is IPX7 rated. The DMD device is IP67 rated. So what that means is the DMD device is rated for dust. The Garmin is not. That, to me, that was a little surprising. I did all these spec comparisons too in a previous video. You can go back and refer to that one too. It's going to give you a lot of the same information, maybe a little bit more detail even. I'll link that as well. I was surprised to see that the Garmin had no dust rating because a lot of riders were going through a ton of dust. I mean, there's times where, especially if we have a big group, it is dusty conditions, and depending on where you mount these, they can be exposed to that. So it is surprising. I haven't heard of people having issues with it. Maybe that's why it's not, but it is nice to know that the DMD devices, the tablet I believe as well, they're both rated for dust. So that's a plus in my mind. And the next up, we're going to talk about accessories. So there's a few accessories as far as lockable mounts. The XT2, I had the Touratech mount for my XT, extremely high quality mount, not cheap. You're talking $200 for that lockable mount for the Garmin devices. For the DMD device, you can get one from DMD. It's only $35, so a lot different price point. You can also get the Moto Pumps lock for the XT2. It's got the pin, I believe, that goes through. It's $70. But again, I have not used the lockable mount for the DMD device. On the tablet, the actual mount is lockable that it comes with, so you get that when you buy the tablet. It comes with it. So as a package, that's why I keep saying that the tablet is such a good package for the price because of what you get. Yes, it may be a little bit more than the XT2, but it comes with the it comes with the lockable mount, and for many, that's a huge perk from a cost perspective too, rather than having to buy an aftermarket lockable mount. So when you're talking replacement parts for these, so like a replacement charging station or charging mount, etc., the XT2 is going to run you about $60. So if you were to have to replace your mount for that, it's about $60. For the DMD devices, the replacement, this piece right here is $40 just for this, if you had to replace this. So cheaper. If you had to replace your entire harness and the mount, it'd be $70. So this is 40, this is $30 to replace if you had to. The USB, so this USB cable is $17. And all that's at Adventure Tim. He's the US retailer. Check him out. One other thing I want to mention too is the DMD phone. I don't know if you can see it. It comes with a screen protector already on it. The tablet does the same. You can't see it on the tablet, and there's a lot of question about that, but it does come with a screen protector from the factory. So I don't think you can see this, but just from my one ride, there are a couple scratches already on the Garmin device. Yeah, there's actually quite a few little scratches right there. So something to think about there too. It does not mess with the function of the device at all though. Accessories still, so one big one, and to me this is a huge difference between the two. The DMD devices allow use of a handlebar controller. So I have the DMD Remote 1 on my 701. It can connect via Bluetooth or hardwire, and the DMD phone is compatible with that. The Zumo device, I believe there are no options for a handlebar controller. So to me, that is a huge difference between the two. So if you want to use a handlebar controller, there's an obvious choice of what direction you go. Now let's talk about issues. That's where I'm going to wrap this up as far as the devices go. On the 500-mile trip, in general, I had no issues. They both function flawless, no issues. Once you figure out how to load the GPX files into the Garmin, it's not that bad. Now, to me, it is a little bit easier to do it in the DMD device, but in the next video, we'll go through all that and how you do that on each device. The only issue I had with the DMD is, if you can see this, we have some water intrusion, condensation on the front camera, on the back camera, and the flashlight. I don't know why. Now we had a full day of rain, like I said. All the covers, so each of these, whether it be the micro SD, USB-C, etc., they have really nice rubber covers. That's what they thought potentially was the issue. I made sure that these things were closed off very tightly because I knew that was a potential issue that people have had. They've had some other devices go bad because of, USB, excuse me, USB-C not being completely blocked off, but these were. I'm pretty confident. So I've already talked to Adventure Tim. They're going to warranty this. They're going to send me another one once they get it. It doesn't, there's no issues with the functionality except for the camera use and the flashlight use, obviously. The flashlight still works. And actually, if I kept it on, it may get rid of some of that condensation. But overall, those are the only issues I had with the DMD device. So in general, from a device perspective, which one's better? Well, I'd say neither necessarily. A lot of it comes down to what's your primary use case for these devices. Is it to just load a GPX file and then follow the line? If that's the case, either device is going to do fine. The Garmin device is going to function fine for you if that's all you want to do. We'll talk more about the user interface differences, but from that perspective, you could pick either one. Which one is a better deal? Which one is your buddy using, pretty much? Because one nice feature that we will talk about again is group riding, and so you can see where you are as a group, where each other is on the map. The DMD devices will be coming out with that as well, but when it comes down to it, if all you have to do is follow a route and all your other buddies have a Garmin device, it may make sense to go Garmin. Just like with folks that do Sena or Cardo. They're both great devices in general. I have a Cardo because everyone else I ride with, we run Cardos. I would probably do the same if they all ran Senas. So in general, you can make the same argument here, is if the whole group is running this, I'm going to run the same. Now, if you're wanting to do customization, if you want to have options, if you want to be able to get updates and upgrades almost real time, the DMD device is going to give you better options. I will say, and I do have my phone. So I have a S24 Samsung phone. I do believe that from a size perspective, so let's just line these up. If the DMD phone was the size of the S24, I think a lot of people would like that size. So it's not as big as a tablet. It's not as small as this current phone. To me, this is a great size, and I think this is what folks would like to see in a phone size. So that's the device comparison. Stick around for episode 2, going through the user interface. That will be much more in depth, probably longer video because there's a lot to talk about as far as user interface, pros and cons of both. Spoiler alert, DMD is light years ahead when it comes to user interface and the customization that you can do with Android. So I hope this was helpful. Stick around for episode 2, subscribe if you have not, and we'll see you on the next one.